My girlfriend Riley said to her coworker Derek, "Told you he wouldn't leave. Just keep this up. A few more weeks, he will look pathetic." They were talking about me, about how weak I am, about how I had never have the balls to walk away no matter what she did to me. So I packed my stuff and left without a word. What happened next completely destroyed the narrative she had built about who I am. Look, I know how this sounds already. You are probably thinking, dude, why didn't you see this coming? And honestly, I am asking myself the same thing. But let me back up because this story is so much worse than just finding some mean texts. I am 24, software engineer here in Austin, Texas. 3 weeks ago, Riley came home from a nightclub at 2 in the morning, completely wasted. When I picked her up, she looked me dead in the eyes and slurred, "You sound more like my dad than my boyfriend." I felt something die inside me that night, but I thought we were working through our issues. We had been going to couples therapy. We had rules about this stuff. God, typing this makes me feel so stupid. See, we created this mutual boundary early in our relationship, no clubbing without each other. It worked for 3 years. We talked about marriage, baby names, buying a house in South Austin. I thought we were solid. Then Derek happened. Derek is this 27-year-old guy from her marketing team who treats people like chess pieces. Charismatic, witty, but I am realizing now he is probably insecure underneath all that charm. He started driving Riley home from work parties. When I gently suggested she keep things professional, she shut me down. "You are too controlling. You need to trust me." But here is where it gets really messed up. I found out she was telling Derek that I was insecure and had asked her to cut him off. They started mocking me in private messages. The humiliation was so intense that I actually broke up with her, literally the day before my birthday. For 6 weeks, I went no contact. I was destroyed but trying to heal. Then I made the mistake of reaching out, suggesting couples therapy, begging to rebuild trust. She refused at first, but then suddenly changed her mind. "I want to try again." I was so desperate to get back what we had that I said yes immediately. For 2 weeks, everything felt perfect again. Riley was affectionate, present, loving. I actually thought we were healing. I thought the woman I fell in love with was back. But then something shifted after one of our therapy sessions. She started going out 3 nights a week, coming home drunk, surrounded by new guy friends I had never heard of. When I tried to talk to her about boundaries, she would get defensive, or just ignore me completely. 2 nights ago, she fell asleep with her phone unlocked next to me. I wasn't snooping, the screen lit up with a notification and I saw Derek's name. The preview showed, "Told you he wouldn't leave. Just keep this up a few more weeks, he will look pathetic." My hands were literally shaking as I read the full conversation. I quickly airdropped the screenshots to myself before she could wake up. They had turned my pain, my desperation to save our relationship, into a cruel bet. Derek had wagered that I was too weak to walk away no matter how badly she treated me. And Riley was going along with it. The next morning, while she was still asleep, I quietly packed everything I owned. On the kitchen table, I left a short note. "You called me weak, but strength is knowing when to walk away, and I am walking." She has been calling and texting non-stop since then, crying, begging for an explanation. I haven't answered a single one. But here is what is eating me alive. Was I really that pathetic? Did I let myself become this person who would tolerate anything just to avoid being alone? And how do I move forward when someone I loved for 3 years literally made a game out of my heartbreak? Reddit. I need to know, am I overreacting? Or was walking away the first strong thing I had done in months? Holy crap, the responses here. I am reading every comment. Thank you for helping me see this clearly. Update coming soon. Update 1. So after reading all your comments on my last post, I did some digging. What I found out about Derek and how this all started is worse than I originally thought. First off, thank you to everyone who told me I wasn't overreacting. I was honestly starting to question my own sanity. Apparently gaslighting does that to you. Who knew? So here is what I have pieced together over the past 3 weeks. Remember how I mentioned Riley suddenly changed her mind about getting back together, that she went from refusing couples therapy to suddenly wanting to try again? Yeah, well, I think Derek had been working on her for a while. I reached out to my buddy Marcus, who works at the same company as Riley, and asked him to keep his ears open. What he told me made my stomach drop all over again. Apparently, Derek had been telling Riley for months that I was controlling and insecure. He kept pointing out normal relationship boundaries as red flags and gradually convinced her that I was emotionally manipulating her. Marcus overheard Derek saying stuff like, "You deserve someone who trusts you completely, and healthy relationships don't have rules like that." The bet wasn't some elaborate scheme from the beginning. It started when Derek noticed how torn up I was after the breakup. He told Riley, "I bet he will come crawling back within 2 months. Guys like him always do." When I actually reached out begging for another chance, Derek saw an opportunity to prove his theory about nice guys. Here is what really gets me. Derek convinced Riley that the fake reconciliation was a test to see if I would actually change. He told her, if he is really grown, he will give you space to rebuild trust. If he is still controlling, he will freak out when you start having a social life again. The clubbing, the mysterious guy friends, the late nights, Derek framed all of it as Riley reclaiming her independence and me proving whether I had changed or not. And when I started getting upset about boundaries, Derek was right there saying, "See, he hasn't changed at all." But here is where Derek overplayed his hand. Marcus said Derek started bragging to their marketing team about his social dynamics research. He was calling it some kind of study on codependent relationship patterns and taking notes about how predictable my reactions were. He even made jokes about how he could manipulate the situation to get specific responses from me. The worst part, I think Riley genuinely thought she was doing some kind of relationship test at first, but somewhere along the way, it became less about testing me and more about impressing Derek. She got caught up in his validation and started seeing me through his eyes as this pathetic, clingy guy who needed to be taught a lesson. Derek's ultimate goal wasn't as elaborate as getting me to propose and leave me at the altar. He just wanted to prove his theory that nice guys will tolerate anything, if you mix just enough affection with disrespect. He thought it was hilarious that I kept trying to win back someone who was actively testing how much abuse I would take. Since leaving, I have been staying with my sister in North Austin. I have been going to individual therapy, screw couples therapy, with someone who is treating it like an experiment, and I have been applying for jobs in other cities because honestly, I need a fresh start somewhere. These toxic people cannot affect my healing. Riley is still texting me daily. The messages have evolved from confused to angry to desperate. Yesterday she sent, "Derek says, you are just proving his point by running away instead of fighting for us." I finally responded, "Tell Derek the experiment is over. You both failed." She called me 32 times after that. I counted. Here is what I am realizing though. Derek might have started this game, but Riley chose to play it. At some point, she stopped being manipulated and started being an active participant in hurting someone she claimed to love. Next update, I will tell you about what happened when I started looking for jobs and why leaving Texas might be the best decision I have ever made. Update 2, these past 2 months have been absolutely crazy, but I am finally seeing light at the end of this nightmare. So remember how I mentioned applying for jobs in other cities? Well, 3 weeks ago I got an offer from a tech startup in San Diego, software engineer position, 28% pay raise, and they are covering relocation expenses. The process took about 6 weeks of interviews and technical assessments, but they fast-tracked me because of high market demand for experienced developers. I was planning to leave Austin quietly, tell a few close friends goodbye, and disappear from this whole toxic situation. But Riley and Derek had other plans. About a month ago, Riley showed up at my sister's apartment unannounced. Sarah answered the door and told me later that Riley looked like she hadn't slept in days. Apparently she had been driving around North Austin for hours trying to find where I was staying. Riley begged Sarah to let her talk to me, crying about how she had made a terrible mistake and how Derek had convinced her I was toxic. When Sarah told her I wasn't home, Riley asked if she could wait for 4 hours. Sarah finally told her, "Caleb doesn't want to see you. And honestly, after what he told me you did, I don't want you anywhere near my brother." But here is where it gets really crazy. A week later, Derek contacted me directly. This guy had the audacity to message me on LinkedIn with some sob story about how the whole thing was just research that got out of hand and how he never meant for Riley to actually hurt me. He claimed Riley had taken his suggestions too far and that he felt terrible about how everything played out. Then, and I swear, I am not making this up. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee and discuss the social dynamics we had observed. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Marcus. Turns out Derek was telling people at work that I was unstable and harassing him online. He was trying to control the narrative in case word got back to HR about his workplace behavior. So I did something Derek definitely didn't expect. I forwarded his LinkedIn message to HR at their company, along with screenshots of the original bet conversation and a timeline of the situation. Marcus said he would also heard Derek making inappropriate comments about manipulating coworkers' relationships, so he backed up my report. But Riley made one final play that honestly broke my heart all over again. Last week, she somehow got my new job information, probably from mutual friends, and sent an anonymous email to my future company claiming I was going through mental health issues and suggesting they reconsider their hiring decision. Thank God my new manager is professional. He forwarded me the email and asked if I wanted to discuss anything. When I explained the situation briefly, he just said, "Sounds like you are making a smart move, getting away from that toxicity. We are excited to have you on the team." But during that conversation, something clicked for me. The woman I loved for 3 years was actively trying to sabotage my career out of spite. This wasn't someone who got manipulated by Derek. This was someone who would rather destroy my future than let me walk away with my dignity intact. That is when it really hit me. I wasn't grieving the loss of Riley. I was grieving the loss of someone who never actually existed. The real Riley was the person who could participate in months of emotional manipulation and then try to ruin my career when I finally stood up for myself. I am flying out to San Diego next week to apartment hunt. Sarah's driving with me because she says she needs a vacation, but I think she just wants to make sure I actually leave and don't look back. My therapist asked me last session, "What would you tell someone else in your situation about love and respect?" I think I would say, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. And never mistake someone's cruelty for love, no matter how they justify it. Final update coming once I am settled in California. Update 3. It has been 3 months since my last update, and I am writing this from my apartment balcony in Pacific Beach watching the sunset over the ocean. I promised you a final update, and man, do I have closure for you. First, I am genuinely good. Like, really, truly good, in a way I haven't been in years. The job is incredible. I have made solid friends, and I haven't thought about Riley or Derek in weeks. But apparently, they have been dealing with some consequences. Let me back up and tell you about San Diego first, because honestly, moving here was the best decision I have made in my adult life. The job is everything I hoped for and more. I am working on this really cool fintech app that is actually making a difference in people's lives. My team is supportive. My manager treats me like a human being, and nobody's trying to manipulate anyone's personal relationships for entertainment. Wild concept, right? I found this awesome apartment about 6 blocks from the beach. Every morning I can hear the waves, and on weekends, I have been learning to surf. Turns out when you are not walking on eggshells around someone who is supposed to love you, you have energy for hobbies again. Who knew? I have made friends through work and a local hiking group Sarah found for me online. These are genuine people who invite me to things because they actually enjoy my company, not because they are running some social experiment. It is refreshing as hell. But here is the really good part. About 2 months after I moved here, I was at this coffee shop in Mission Beach, and this woman at the next table was struggling with her laptop. Being a software engineer, I offered to help. Turns out it was just a simple browser issue, but we ended up talking for like 2 hours. Her name is Sophia. She is a UX designer for a sustainable fashion startup, and she is God. Where do I even start? She is everything Riley pretended to be, but authentic. Kind without performing kindness. Funny without needing to put others down. Present in conversations without constantly checking her phone or planning her next social media post. When I told her the basic story about my past relationship, and I mean basic, like my ex and her coworker made my life hell for a while, her immediate response was, "I am sorry someone made you question your worth like that. You deserve to be treated with basic respect." Basic respect. Such a simple concept that I would somehow forgotten was the foundation of any healthy relationship. We have been taking things incredibly slow, which feels perfect. No games, no tests, No hidden agendas. Just two people getting to know each other honestly. She has never once made me feel like I need to prove myself or earn her affection. When she says she is excited to see me, I actually believe her. Last weekend, we drove up to Laguna Beach for the day. As we were walking along the cliffs, Sophia asked about my family, and I found myself talking about Sarah and how supportive she has been through everything. Sophia just listened, really listened, and then said, "She sounds amazing. I would love to meet her sometime when she visits." No jealousy about close family relationships. No subtle attempts to isolate me from my support system. Just genuine interest in the people who matter to me. I almost cried right there on the cliff because I had forgotten that is how normal, healthy people respond to their partner's other relationships. But okay, you probably want to know what happened with Derek and Riley. Remember how Derek got reported to HR for his workplace behavior? Well, that investigation took about 6 weeks. And Marcus kept me loosely updated on what he could observe from the outside. From what Marcus could see, HR took the situation seriously. Derek got called into multiple meetings over several weeks, and apparently they discovered he had made similar inappropriate comments about other coworkers' relationships before. Nothing as elaborate as what happened with me, but a definite pattern of boundary-crossing behavior that made people uncomfortable. The company also found out Derek had been using work time and resources to research social dynamics and take notes on coworkers' personal lives. Apparently that fell under misuse of company resources, which was easier for them to document than the psychological manipulation stuff. Derek ended up getting terminated for gross misconduct and unprofessional behavior. Marcus said the company's legal team reviewed the case but didn't pursue external action since it was primarily personal drama rather than workplace fraud. Still, Derek's LinkedIn now shows unemployed, and Marcus says the story spread through Austin tech circles pretty quickly. Good luck getting hired anywhere decent with that reputation. But Riley, her story took a different and, honestly, more complex turn. About 2 months ago, she and Derek started dating publicly. I guess when you bond over manipulating someone, it makes sense you would end up together. But here's the thing about people who get off on control: that dynamic doesn't just disappear when they turn to each other. Marcus mentioned that Riley seemed increasingly isolated at work. Derek apparently started using the same tactics on her that he had encouraged her to use on me, questioning her friendships, making her feel like she needed to prove her loyalty, gradually cutting her off from other support systems. According to Marcus, Derek would analyze Riley's interactions with coworkers the same way he had analyzed mine. "Why did you laugh so hard at Mike's joke?" Or, "Sarah from accounting seems to have it out for me. You should probably keep your distance." Classic manipulation tactics, but now Riley was on the receiving end. The really twisted part? Derek started treating their relationship like another one of his social experiments. Marcus overheard him telling someone that he was studying codependent attachment patterns in their relationship. So even when he was supposedly in love, this guy couldn't stop turning human emotions into research projects. About 6 weeks ago, Riley reached out to Sarah asking for my contact information. When Sarah refused, Riley broke down and admitted that Derek had been analyzing their relationship the same way he had analyzed ours. She said she finally understood what she would put me through and wanted to apologize. Sarah told her, "The apology Caleb needs is for you to leave him alone and get yourself help." Apparently Riley is now in individual therapy trying to understand how she got so wrapped up in Derek's manipulation that she lost sight of basic human decency. Part of me feels bad for her, but honestly, that is her journey to take. I cannot fix the damage she chose to participate in, and I am not responsible for her healing process. Marcus also mentioned that several other people at their company have started avoiding Derek since word got out about his research. Even though he is unemployed now, apparently he still hangs around some of the same social circles, and people are starting to see his behavior patterns for what they really are. Here is what really strikes me about all this. I spent so much energy trying to understand why Riley would hurt me, why Derek would target me, what I could have done differently. But the truth is, their behavior was never about me. It was about their own insecurities, their need for control, their inability to form genuine connections. My therapist here in San Diego. Yeah, I found a new one, Dr. Martinez. She is incredible, helped me understand that Derek probably targeted our relationship because it represented something he couldn't have himself. Genuine love, trust, commitment. So instead of working on his own issues, He decided to prove that what we had was fake or fragile. And Riley, I think she got so caught up in Derek's validation and so afraid of being seen as boring or controlled that she lost sight of what actually mattered. She traded 3 years of real love for a few months of feeling edgy and independent. The saddest part is that if she had just talked to me about feeling restricted by our boundaries, we probably could have worked something out. Healthy relationships evolve, but instead of communicating, she chose deception and cruelty. Dr. Martinez asked me something that really stuck. What would you tell your 20-year-old self about recognizing your worth in relationships? I think I would say, pay attention to how someone treats you when they are upset, stressed, or being influenced by others. That is when you see their true character, and never, ever accept the excuse that someone hurt you because they were being manipulated by someone else. Adults are responsible for their own choices, even when those choices are influenced by manipulative people. But here is the thing I am most proud of. 3 months ago, when Sophia and I first started talking, she mentioned an ex who had cheated on her. My immediate reaction wasn't to probe for details or worry about whether she had cheated on me. It was just sympathy for the pain she had experienced. That is when I knew I would really healed. When someone else's past didn't trigger my trauma response. When I could hear about relationship problems without immediately relating it back to my own experience. Last week, I realized I hadn't checked Riley's social media in over 2 months. I hadn't wondered what she was doing or who she was with. I hadn't felt that familiar stab of hurt when someone mentioned her name. I hadn't even thought about Derek's stupid social experiments or wondered if other people saw me as weak. I was completely free. 2 days ago, Riley sent me one final text. I heard you are doing well in California. I understand now what Derek was doing to both of us. I am truly sorry. I read it, felt absolutely nothing, and deleted it without responding. Not because I am angry anymore, but because that chapter of my life is permanently closed. Her apology, while maybe genuine, doesn't change what happened. And I don't owe her forgiveness, just because she finally figured out what the rest of us could see from the beginning. You know what I learned through all this? Strength isn't staying and fighting for someone who doesn't respect you. Strength isn't proving you can handle whatever someone dishes out. Strength isn't winning their games or being the bigger person when someone treats you like garbage. Strength is recognizing your worth and walking away when someone shows you they don't value your heart, even when walking away feels impossible. Even when you love them. Even when you have built a life together.